Hello and welcome back. Today we are here with the remarkable Darin Olien. Thank you so much for being with us.
I'm stoked to be here.
You are a co-host for the Emmy Award-winning #1 docuseries Down to Earth with Zac Efron on Netflix. You also host your hit podcast, The Darin Olien Show, which is filmed here.
Yes.
Sometimes.
And when it's in person, yes.
And you have written the New York Times bestseller SuperLife, and most recently,
Dun, dun, dun.
Fatal Conveniences. You have a BA in exercise physiology, nutrition, and a master's in psychology. You founded Barukas.
Yes.
Which are the most nutrient-dense nut in the world. Is this true?
So far, we did
Wow.
the testing, and
We should talk about that.
yeah, there's a lot.
You also developed the Superfood nutrition shake, Shakeology, for Beachbody. You are a dog dad to 2 beautiful German shepherds, Chaga and Ella, and an all-around incredible advocate for plant-based eating and non-toxic living. Let's get into the questions. You spent 2 decades adventuring around the planet looking for superfoods and have even been named the superfood hunter. How did this all come about, and what were some of the most impactful moments during this epic 20-year span?
Wow, that's a great question. How did it happen? Innocently.
Tell me.
I think it was, I've told this story many times, but just to catch everyone up, in college, playing American college football, got injured, couldn't get back on the field. I was a sophomore. The whole world came together through that kind of challenge and a bit of depression.
Oh, no.
That led me to the moment of awareness was like, oh, why don't I study the very thing that seems to be not functioning properly, the body and nutrition. It was already a passion of mine, and it didn't dawn on me until that moment that I could actually study what it is that I love. And so it happened in college. I changed my majors and studied a variety of different kind of in a liberal arts way at a liberal arts school. So kinesiology, physiology, nutrition, all of these things. So it exposed me to this wonder of this kind of miracle that we have, right?
Nice.
And then I graduated college and went out to Boulder, Colorado, and I started kind of shadowing a guy, Dale Greenwald. Shout out to Dale, 30-some years ago at this point, in exercise physiology, getting to know, doing rehab. And then on the side, I was studying nutrition with another doctor.
Was it plant-based nutrition?
No, it was kind of the first. I wasn't plant-based at the time, but I was studying, just started to unpack some of the things of compounds in foods, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this doctor would get, before the internet was much of a thing at all, right? It was, this doctor would leave me stacks of studies, and he had more clarity about my life than I did at the time.
Wow.
Because he was like, that's the future. The future is nutrition. The future is in the food, not what I used to do as a retired medical doctor. So, and I just lived my life at a certain point. Then the kind of this awareness of consciousness intersecting, the body became a fascination of mine. The spiritual journey started to open up. I started studying implied and started studying psychology from a broader perspective, Carl Jung and Carl Rogers and all of these kind of things, and just kind of getting my head around the consciousness side of things. And so I got a master's in psychology, and then I moved to California. Kind of along the way of doing rehab and stuff, I'd consult and do nutrition stuff and this learning. So I started playing with food. I started playing with I was running triathlons and doing a bunch of that stuff. So I was making my own little power bars, and I was like, I wasn't buying those bars that people were eating. I was making.
I used to love power bars.
Oh yeah,
They were so good.
They're the OG.
I know,
Amazing, right? They're so weirdly good
I know.
and break your teeth kind of, you know. But then I would just like, I start to do some nutritionals on dates and almond butter
Yeah.
and mix those together and get the quotients enough so I could like put them in a baggie, keep the baggie open, and just reach in and eat those along the way and races and stuff. So
Nice.
I started playing with stuff, and then that became more and more fascinating. And then kind of cut to looking deeper into nutrition products and seeing like these marketing stories, and then looking around on labels and seeing where, seemingly a good product, but then how people would formulate it and what they would put in the product. It just got me. There was a moment there then I was literally in a nutrition store, and I was so frustrated because I saw this yet again of another product just with horrible ingredients, but then marketing the panacea. And I was just like, this is insane. And so I said, I'm seeing this. And then kind of a voice in my head said, go do something about it. Right. So then I kind of, and that coupled with my father passing away, 2003, 2004 area, all of this came together where I was like, okay, take this on now. Like, don't just play around with it. So take it on. So I started really looking at formulation and playing with formulas, and developed a power bar. A very extensive
Why is it not on the market?
It's interesting. It got me it virtually painted it created the on-ramp for me to get the job from Beachbody.
To do Shakeology.
Yeah.
Wow.
So Carl and his wife Isabel, who also helped formulate with me, Isabel tasted the bar from this guy I hired from the vitamin bar just down the street.
To formulate it for you.
Yeah. And they said, well, we don't want to do a bar yet, but we're thinking about doing kind of what you're doing in this bar, do it in a shake. Can you do it in the shake? And I'm like, hell yeah, it's a lot easier to do a shake than it is a bar. And I had packaging designed for me. I had Darin's Naturals. I had it all laid out. I was looking at elements and how they amplify ingredients. I was chanting while I was doing it. Like, I was so into it.
Wow.
And it was kind of that first kind of, how can what's missing in today's diets, what I was seeing. So what can I bring? How can I use these superfoods? And certainly the traveling had started, so I was running around the globe.
And how were you finding the time, the energy, the resource to do all that for 20 years?
Yeah, well,
was it a full-time job, or were you just doing it because you were interested?
I started because it was interesting, and I started it because I wanted to innocently. And that's full circle, as I said, I started it innocently, and like I said, if I'm gonna play with and understand maca and yacon and Sasha Inchi and Unigado and Camu and Graviola and Dragon's Blood and all of these,
I just recently found out about Dragon's Blood.
Oh man, I still it's underutilized.
So there's some studies. Side note here, we're going off on a branch, but this is important because apparently it's the highest food, or I guess extract, because it's a sap from a tree, and it has the highest vitamin C content, right?
Probably not vitamin C. I don't think so.
Or is it antioxidants?
It's antioxidants.
Okay.
Yeah.
But there have been some studies where it's done DNA damage, and then some studies say that it helps repair DNA damage.
Yeah.
So we don't know what it is. Do you know of any current studies?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't looked into it for so many years, but I have taken wounds myself and hit with the machete on the tree of the dragon's blood. Watch the dragon's blood come down, bleed, and it looks like blood. And that resin is one of the most healing topical resins ever.
You don't take it internally?
I have, yeah.
And do you feel anything?
Yeah, I feel like amazing. I mean, it's been forever since I have, but I think topically, it's underutilized.
Yeah.
And then internally, yeah, there might be a need for more studies and things like
Okay.
that.
All right, back on track.
Yeah, so that, but that's a great example. It's like, hey, if I'm gonna formulate these things, I gotta know, and I gotta know who is gonna either collect it, forage it, grow it, farm it. How are they gonna do that? Because again, the problem for me was what I was seeing, translating what people were talking about, these incredible ingredients, but then having a very poor quality or a bad formulation, so it wasn't able to do its job, right?
Yeah.
So, and that's really what I was setting out to do, to learn from the people and to understand where it's from and how it's, kind of anthropologically on the side, understand what's going on, how did they indigenously use these things, and then how can we then take that knowledge, support the people, support how they grow it, and then preserve these active compounds that are tremendous for us. So that was that innocent approach. So initially it was just me, and a small team, people you meet there, people I brought with, and then that formulation, again, when you start something and have a vision for something, you have no idea what's going to happen. You just
cool.
got to do it.
It's exciting.
And in that doing, I would formulate going, okay, this is my first product. I'm going to bring this out. But then I blew through all my money, and it was perfect timing where I met Beachbody. So they paid me basically to continue to do what I am already doing, but do it in a powder form.
I find it so fascinating that when you do something for the pure goodness of it, and you follow your calling in life, and it sounds like, you had that inner voice and you knew your calling, and then you follow that, God provides along
100%.
the way. And he provided right at that moment that you needed the money, financing to continue to do it. And you can do whatever you want. There's no limits.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
It's important to understand that.
Yeah.
Because it's not about the stuff. It's about whatever is on one's heart to do. You don't get to know all the steps. It's not part of it. You actually don't get to know. You may think you know, right? And you may think you want to control the whole thing. Yeah, but what if, and how will I pay for this? And you ask way too many inappropriate questions for the time. If something's on your heart, just move into it.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean you need to quit your job over here and divorce a person over there. It doesn't mean any of this overthinking thing. Move on something that you want to do. Look into it, explore, make a phone call, do some research, do something. And in that process, for me, the snowball effect just continued. So I was hell bent. I was making my own products, right? I would find these things in the Amazon. I didn't see them, many of them, even in the world, in the Western world, or done in any sort of way that was getting out there. So then in that serendipity of meeting Isabel and Carl hiring me in 2006, the product Shakeology came out in 2009. And then, that was a lightning in a bottle. I mean,
it made like billions of dollars.
Billions. You can't even possibly imagine.
Okay, it's time to make your bar.
Yeah.
Darin.
Yeah, it's kind of circled back around because Barucas, I found that nut in the Cerrado of Brazil I was told about it. I mean, all these things. I'm not finding anything. I'm rediscovering vis-a-vis through people, or they tell me. Okay. Or I'm looking over here, and then someone says, do you know about this? I mean, every time I go on a trip, I don't know about 10 of these things. And some of them, you can't make it into a product, or there's some impassibilities that you just can't get through. But you have to look at it and understand it. That's why being on the ground and in all of these countries, that was informative in ways that you can't understand it. If I'm going to bring these things out, I have to know who the hell's doing it and how they're doing it from there, and I have to have that relationship.
For sure.
So I continued that path, and so I was getting paid to do the thing that I was doing on my own.
So special.
Yeah, and then the product's out in 2008, and then it gets so good. So I just continue to do. So then you're securing your own supply chain. So at that point, the formula at that point was like there's 40 plus ingredients in there. So you imagine that comes from a lot of different places. So it was also then the deepening and rooting into, pun intended, with the relationships of people. Like I saw people that I have known for 15 years and their whole lives have changed because we created fair trade with them. We created opportunity and consistency is the king when it comes to farmers and collectors. It's a vulnerable thing. Any farmer anywhere in the world, you put a seed in the ground and you either have to feed yourself or you have to sell it. And if you're trying to sell it, you need someone to buy it. And that if that's your livelihood, that's a vulnerable thing. And then you have the world doing what it's doing. You have people gouging you on prices. You have
chemicals coming over from Joey next door doing the pesticide thing.
Come on, Joey.
Joey,
come on,
stop it.
What are you doing, Joey? I told you not to use that shit. So, Joey. So come on, Joey. I told you once. I told you twice. Shit. So yeah. So anyway, that's that story, and that just continued, and I was able to continue to do what I do and find other stuff and create other stuff.
That's
and
so
like
cool.
Yeah, it's a beautiful.
Did they use pesticides in the Amazon, or can you not? Like, what happens over there with chemicals and food?
Well, they're trying. I mean, like again, you're dealing with the encroachment.
Joey.
I know, it's like a bunch of Joeys around. We're not talking little Joeys that are in the marsupial class. That's what they call like the little Joeys of kangaroos and stuff. Right. We're talking about chemical Joeys.
Right.
So. Yeah, it's being encroached upon.
Wow.
I think on average the size of France is being lost in the Amazon every year.
Oh my goodness.
And the Cerrado is worse. So where the Barucas come from in the Cerrado, which is south, basically south of the Amazon in Brazil, mostly, that's being deforested faster than any landmass on the planet.
For what?
For
cattle?
For cattle, for beef production, for food for the beef. Soy, corn, all of that stuff. It is so horrifying because I've seen it. I've seen the line, this beautiful forest, and then there's a line of literally where they just cut it down. It's heart-wrenching. It's literally heart-wrenching because we have no idea the devastation. We literally have no idea the magnitude of destruction from the smallest of insects to the biggest of loss of soil and life and everything else. It's
medicinal foods.
Listen, you could argue the Cerrado has as much medicinal qualities in the Cerrado as it does in the Amazon. It just has a biomass that's reversed. The biomass is as much, many say, as the same biomass in the Amazon. What do I mean? You go to the Amazon, you see the Amazon, right? It's this lush, thick forest, right? You go to the Cerrado, it's more dry because it's got long dry seasons, right? So it's a savanna.
Okay.
Right? It's not the African savanna, it's the Brazilian savanna. It's massive. It's the size of 3 states of Texas. It's huge. It's almost half of the United States, at least a solid 1/3. It's huge. So the biomass is below the ground. So the diversity, the depth, even the tree, the Barozeda tree where the Barucas come from, it has got a long taproot tapping into the aquifers for its water, and then nitrogen fixing out of the air and then giving to the rest of the plants. Like it's so
special.
it's so amazing, but it's being but it's being wiped out. So the destruction around all this stuff. So in one way, creating value back of working directly with the people and consciously harvesting or collecting or trading with these botanicals also creates value where value has been kind of lost and divorced, not from them, but from the modern world that has encroached. And then you have governments, with the subsidizing and the GDP being the measuring stick. That inherently is one of the greatest fatal conveniences because it doesn't measure anything else, and that is inherently massively destructive. So I love to do the trade because it creates value. And then that perceived value of those indigenous or First Nations people can stay on their land.
Your father was part of the Nuclear Weapons Association in the Navy, and he was one of the engineers working with atomic bombs.
Keepers of the Dragon.
When you were in college, he developed a pretty serious chemical sensitivity disorder. Please tell us about him and his influence on your life.
Howard Olien. Shout out. Pops. He was an alcoholic. He got sober when I was 4.
Okay.
If you look closely on my chin, you will see a scar on my chin. He didn't mean to. He was drunk. And at 4 years old, he accidentally shut a door and it threw me into the sea of beer bottles.
Oh, no.
And it cut my chin almost off.
Oh, my goodness.
And that got him sober. And so he was sober for 30 years of my life. Wasn't so peaceful about it, right? Bit of an angry guy. Didn't really deal with the emotions around it. But then as I kind of grew up and, in my teenage years, we started to I was in sports and he could kind of get around that and we could bond through that. And then we really got close as I kind of became my own man. Mm-hmm. And he became happier when he divorced my mom. But before that, as I was in college, one of his added struggles was, he was working AA, he was working his own spiritual programs and stuff like that and trying to stay active and engaged. And he was a tenured professor at the University of Minnesota. He taught a lot of
professor too.
Really? Mm-hmm. Nice. Yeah, I didn't realize I was proud of him at that time, but I was. And so you'd see, I'd go in and he'd let me hang out in the back of a class and watch him.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was cool. Really cool to see, because you see him as a leader. And
yeah.
So that was beautiful. And but as I was finishing, in the middle of college, he started talking to me about this sensitivity that he seemed to be having. And he said, I can't wear T-shirts that have these off-gassing or prints on them. Laundry detergents don't work. Carpet cleaners don't work. Anything, any smell, shampoo, conditioner, deodorant, all this stuff. I'm like, what the hell is going on, right? All of a sudden, it just pops up out of nowhere. It doesn't seem like that's real, right? And then, of course, he went into teaching mode. So he'd start researching, he'd start highlighting, he'd start making copies, start making VHS tapes. Yeah, he'd start finding, a 60 Minutes article, whatever. Or a video, and then he'd start doing these things. And so that kind of led to him trying to educate the people around him so he could, because what it would do when he would smell these things is create all kinds of brain fog, and his energy would get zapped, and he couldn't think, and he'd take him days to kind of recover from a dose. Like, if we walk into this room, he will smell every chemical, and he'd just run out, right? He just I can't, because
it's like a blessing and a curse.
Yeah. So it was, and so imagine you feel, and so this condition's called multiple chemical sensitivity disorder. It was then recognized at the University of Minnesota, so he got on disability. He was still trying to detox himself. He was still trying to come back. Then he was under forced retirement at that point. And then just to button up, that cycle of depression kind of isolated him from a world that he loved to connect to and connect with people. And so that spun him. He had 2 more kids with another great wife, and Jenna and Nathan actually just graduated college this last
Nathan?
Yeah.
Congratulations, Nathan.
Yeah. And Jenna.
And Jenna. Jenna graduated college too?
Yeah. They're fraternal twins. So
oh, they're twinsies.
Yeah. So so having new kids, having this challenge spun him, and he started drinking after 30 years, and that didn't go well, and that's what killed him. So so this book is dedicated to that struggle of this invisible world that I saw kind of, from my perspective, kind of took him from life, right? He still had his demons and had those choices of alcohol, but this invisible world that that has dangerous chemicals are harming us and him. He just was more sensitive to it.
Do you think it developed because he was exposed to a lot of radiation?
Yeah. So it made him more susceptible. I mean, it destroyed completely his thyroid, right? And being one of the master glands, right, of the endocrine system, medication doesn't make up for the infinite intelligence of an organ like that. So I think it just made him, and plus, his liver, his detoxification pathways was already.
It's like the perfect storm.
Yeah, for sure.
Did he ever become plant-based?
No.
In his journey?
No.
Is that so? This is not one of my questions, but I thought about this after I came up with all the questions for you. Is that mainly the reason why you became plant-based?
Him?
Yeah.
No. No, it was a coming together of a lot of things, It's like, and this is something we get used to, this modern world. And I was such an incredibly empathetic kid towards animals, right? I wanted to be a vet. I wanted to be close to animals. I wanted, this was my dad. When he first asked me, what do you want to do? I said, I want to be a vet. I want to be around, help animals.
Wow. And,
you suppress all of that stuff. And just like all of us, you become numb to eating. So I was, raised in middle America. So I was eating, all the dairy and meat and all that stuff. And then this moment, it certainly was after that where I started asking a lot of other questions. And I'm, looking at all these botanicals and all these foods, and I'm seeing all this nutrition, right? And I'm like, it doesn't actually make sense to eat flesh of a dead animal and think that is going to become your flesh. Your body, this is the most common sense thing. Your body has to freaking break it all down to that amino acid, those amino acids, to then get a signaling from your DNA vis-a-vis your RNA to going, hey, we need to replace some cells over here. So the RNA tells those amino acids, configure yourself in this way. You get all that from plants. You don't have to eat dead flesh to have flesh. So all of this stuff was just kind of like hitting me, going, and I'm starting to see some of the greatest botanicals in the world that are not deficient, right? And then you start to go, oh, that age-old thing, eat beans and rice together if you don't have meat, because it's a complete
combining,
right. Yes, and the research shows that eat it throughout the week, and your body is getting all the amino acids from if you're eating a whole food, plant-based, you're getting everything. And if you need more protein, just eat more of everything.
I personally don't know somebody who's getting the 2,000 calories a day the average human body needs is protein deficient, who eats whole food plant-based.
Right.
Do you?
No. It doesn't exist.
No.
Because it doesn't exist.
Right.
Right. So, yeah, all that kind of came in, and then I was just like, and then I also was like not feeling well, and as an athlete digestively, so I started doing specific food combinings, and then eventually I was just like, this doesn't make sense anymore, and so I
Amazing.
stopped it all, and then I actually didn't really wait for an adjustment period. I the next day after I said I'm not going to eat anything that's an animal or dairy or anything, and I'm going to crank up my workouts. I'm going to work out like freaking crazy.
What did you do?
Well, I did a bunch of triathlons. I weight trained. I was just like, I've always been obsessed about training. So, and over the years, I'd be around some incredible freaking crazy athletes and stuff. And people to this day, they were like, we don't believe you, right? They didn't believe that I was plant-based. And especially when and it's like, so yeah, I from my own dive into it, I've never been deficient in anything. And again, like I'm finding the best foods in the world.
Literally.
So I was like, why would I have a middleman? Why would I need to have killing of another being that I love so dearly? Why would I need that in the middle of me thriving? Oh yeah, I don't. Right? So then when you get to integrate your life, as you know, when you believe in something and then you can step behind it in your actions, and I believe that is a superpower, that the more aligned you get with what you believe in and care about, and then can continue to it's not perfect, but continue to integrate your actions based on what you believe and stand in. I think that's one of the greatest things that we can do, is exercise our agency of our beliefs based on the path that we walk, the steps that we take. And that's also for me kind of a middle America kid principle, where I just be honest,
be integrity.
Truthful, just do, still to this day, when people, I'm not saying it to toot my own horn, I'm just saying that I've been beep beep I've been able to continue to integrate my life so that it represents something that's meaningful to me, right? So I live that way. And so when people meet me, they go, oh, you live that way.
Yeah.
Right? And even with the loss of my house and the opportunity of like, oh, now I get to build truly from the ground up a healthy home.
That's one of my questions.
Okay.
Should we go into that?
If you want.
Tell me about it.
Well, it's in process.
Tell me all the deets. Like, what are your plans? So it's EMF free.
Yep.
Everything's non-toxic.
So it's been 5 years.
Okay.
And it's been way too long. And I've had to go through many, many challenges just to get to the point where I can rebuild. So in the process, I basically got so frustrated. I said, everyone can take a freaking leap, right?
Sometimes you just have those moments.
Right? And then so I threw up this yurt, which I thought, okay, I'm going to live in this rather than a trailer on my land.
Did you build it yourself?
Well, yeah. I mean, I had people help me. Like, I wanted it fast and furious.
Yeah.
So
You needed shelter.
Yeah, and plus they were building it. I was still shoveling my old house of everything that I lost. So I was on a tractor every day. And so in the process of that, that wasn't permitted. Nothing about my yurt was permitted. They were holding over me, not giving me power, even temporary power, until I did all of these different things, which you could make a criminal argument over what they were doing. So
And
I
who's
said,
they?
it's just all of these LA County, Woolsey Fire Committee, like all of these agencies, all of these things that you have to go through, and they don't talk. It's antiquated. They don't talk to each other, all of this stuff. So I just said, screw you guys. I threw up the yurt, threw solar panels down, got my power, got my well redone, that burned
Nice.
down, all of this stuff. And I just started. So now, after all these years, I'm at a point that now again. So my guest house is soon to be built, and that will be on one area where I will move into before I start kind of really building the main house.
And
so
I've seen pictures on Down to Earth, and it looks like a Flintstones rock house.
Yeah, so that's the main house.
That's so cool.
Yeah, that's a Benny shell.
A Benny shell?
Yeah,
That's
so
the type of architecture.
Yeah, so Niccolo Benny, his father actually developed the technology in Italy in the 60s, I think.
Oh, those Italians.
I know, huh? So Niccolo I met long ago, and I just love this design, not to mention you're kind of biomimicking, right? You're allowing nature to create the curves, create strength, the waste ash, the concrete-like material is sprayed in, basalt rebar, like all this stuff, and there's no abrupt corners. It's an incredible cave-like structure. Robert, if anyone wants to check it out, Robert Downey Jr. in Malibu has a Benny shell he did years ago. So it's the only one in the area.
Cool.
So I was able to kind of go through and feel that one out. And I was like, wow, this feels crazy. So that's still the main goal for the main house. The guest house is using recycled these Connex containers.
What's that?
So they're containers that you can buy, but we're putting them together in a certain way, and then we're using some material science that creates more fire retardancy, no VOCs, super efficient HVAC system that hasn't ever been on the market yet.
What's so special about it?
Well, it's I don't even know all the details, but he's a cryo expert engineer.
Oh.
So understanding cold temperature and kind of transition. So there's a interesting space in energy production that anytime anything phases or changes, and a perfect example of that is if you heat water, it phase changes to steam, right? If you make it cold, it phase changes to ice.
Okay.
Right? Everything, if you use certain liquids, you can phase change at ambient temperature. And then what does that do? That's steam, which then can move a turbine and move and create power. There's also super effective ways using gravity. There's super effective ways using salt.
Wow.
There's super incredible technology that now can use hydrogen from the air on demand. So there's hydrogen in the air right now. There's ambient humidity, right? So
amazing.
So that we've now, and I've seen this with my own eyes, we've seen the air turn on into a white flame of power with frequency, with airflow, and next thing you know, you have infinite energy. So can you imagine anywhere on planet Earth that has any humidity in the air, which is air always does, it always has hydrogen, you have a power source.
That's
you don't have to
amazing.
take it and hold it into a tank. You're literally turn the air on fire. It's crazy. So these and I could do a whole podcast, which is actually I'm switching my podcast a little bit.
How so?
Some of the segments I'm just gonna like open up the whole thing and tell people what I'm doing and bring in the experts.
It's fascinating.
You can't believe it. I wouldn't believe it if I didn't know some of these guys for 17 years.
I'm requesting a VIP tour when it's done.
Oh man, there will be tours.
Okay.
Very selective
I
tours.
want to come see this house.
For sure, yeah.
And no EMFs. How is that going to be possible?
Well, because we won't allow any Wi-Fi in, we're hardwiring everything in. So if you just station your place where all of the Ethernet cables would be, when you would naturally be maybe one at the table, the dining table, maybe one in the office, so that's an easy one. You just don't bring it in.
Where are you going to do your work and stuff and Wi-Fi and have your phone?
You can plug your phone in from an Ethernet cable.
How?
With an adapter today.
Wait, what?
You can do that right now. I swear.
I was when I was listening to your book and we came to the point of Wi-Fi, I was like, maybe as an old phone? Like, how is that possible?
You literally plug it in.
Okay, we're going to have to do this.
Tech Wellness.
Okay.
August Bryce, who owns it, was electrosensitive.
Okay.
It's been for all of her life.
Yeah.
She created a company called Tech Wellness. She has vetted all of this stuff, and she has created adapters. Literally today, even if your Wi-Fi is on, you can plug in. There's got many outlets for an Ethernet cable.
Okay.
Plug that in, run it to your phone with the adapter, plugs right into the phone. You turn your phone on airplane mode, so no cellular signal. And then all of a sudden, pop, it pops up and it shows the Ethernet, and then you just use your phone. And it's plugged in, and there's not a signal coming to your damn phone.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay,
You
so
can do that with your computer too.
do Faraday cages actually still allow the Wi-Fi to work?
Yeah. It may lower it a little bit.
Okay.
Because I have plugins for both my phone and the thing. So like if you're on it, like that's radiation. So why not plug it in? And so now it's not being a receiver and a conductor of so much Wi-Fi, because it's an antenna. So just turn it off and just plug it straight in. So there's not all that extra stress response.
And do you just use a landline to make phone calls?
Yeah, or just use the phone as a speaker, or plug in with air tubes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With not the Wi-Fi ones though.
Not the Bluetooth.
Not the Bluetooth
Hell
ones.
no.
Yeah.
Not putting cancer sticks in my head.
Cancer sticks. Do you know Freely the Banana Girl? Have you ever heard of her?
Oh my God.
She's so inspiring to me.
She has been around forever.
She's like one of the OGs.
She's a way OG.
She's amazing. So she was on the show.
Oh my
and
God.
she called.
I've never met her, but yeah.
She called sunscreen chemical icing and cancer sticks.
Well,
okay.
We're only going off of evidence.
What is in our water supply nowadays, and how is it harming people, and what is the best water for consumption?
The list is way too long for what's in our water.
Yeah.
You still have PCBs that we banned in the 70s that show up in the water, and it's also in our blood. So that's crazy, right? That's a forever chemical. We have DDT that still shows up in water. That was banned in 1972. That also shows up. I'm making a point. It also shows up in the blood. So if it's in the water, it eventually gets in the body, gets in the blood. It should have never been created and consumed or used in any way. It was started with Teflon by DuPont, and Teflon on our pans. Mm-hmm. So let's heat that stuff up. Let's put our food on it. So we're doing that, like crazy all through the 70s and 80s and whatever else.
Well, it's on like paper towels and toilet paper.
Yeah, so that's where now it's like so we started to push back on the pans So if you have any of those pans, throw them away. But now they're in so many other things, in paper, and like you said, toilet paper. It's been showing up in ultra processed food. How I don't know. So so what it is, it's a heat resistant, stain resistant. It's in your wrinkle-free T-shirt that you just bought. That's such a good idea when traveling. So you're putting on your skin. It's in most of the leather on seats. It's stain-resistant carpets and bedding and mattresses and makeups and stuff like that. So anything that is water-free, resistant-free, like all of these things, just stay away from it, because that's usually meaning it's a PFAS. And so what is that doing to the body? Well, directly connected to kidney cancer. Directly, right? Some recent studies came out about that even more. It's just mounting. I'm happy that PFAS is starting to come out more, but the problem is we have to get rid of it. And you can't, as of now, you can't get rid of it. There's one technology and some people I've talked to that they think through a pyrolysis adjustment, taking plastics and annihilating them, that we think they can take PFAS into oblivion and get rid of it. So, and I also talked to a great friend of mine who has been in this material space for a very long time, and today they have an answer for PFAS, and they're buying companies that are currently, so all of the wrappers of your fast foods that your food doesn't stick to, and wrapping your food and it's hot and everything, that's all PFAS. And then the takeaway cartons, all of that stuff, that's PFAS.
Like the styrofoam.
Well, styrofoam, but just the cardboard boxes with the slippery stuff and all that stuff is PFAS.
Oh, no.
So, but today there's an answer for that, and it's happening. So that hopefully will start taking off like crazy in the next probably year.
And then how do we detox it from our bodies?
As of now, I'm not sure, because it wants to stay. That's why it's called a forever chemical.
It's not welcome. Not welcome in our bodies.
Yeah. So it's a problem. I mean, you know, the cascade of mechanisms that it disrupts in the stress response, free radicals, the thwarting of senescence, as well as EMFs doing similar things with cellular pathways. That's where cancer starts to really thrive, when things get disrupted and microenvironments start, which create more environments, which goes into, you know, the terrain theory. When the terrain gets adapted to an environment where cancer thrives, cancer thrives. So, so PFAS is a big one, and we need to avoid it at all costs.
So what type of water is best
Back
for
to water
consumption?
So also, so sorry, got onto PFAS, but pharmaceuticals, pesticides, herbicides, larvicides, glyphosates, atrazine, all of these things are in the water today. There's no, it's not a freaking conspiracy that they're trying to put those in the water. It's just that we're using them, and it's in our water tables, and glyphosate specifically is water soluble. So and the mechanisms, the water treatment facilities have no ability to clean these, or they're not doing it. Right? They're making sure it's antiquated. So they're making sure that things aren't killing you on demand, like diphtheria basically, and other acute issues. But they're not dealing with the chemical soups, the 60 to 80,000 chemicals that we just created, and none of it are tested. But we're just blasting it on our ecosystem and in the ecosystem at large. And so then it comes back around and gets us again when we turn on our tap. So what do?
Tell me.
Wow, right? Filter your damn water.
Yeah.
Brita was just the old Brita, that one little stupid ass little thing that you pour water in and it trickles down. Horrible, doesn't work.
Oh no, I used to use Brita.
Yeah, of course. I think they were like the quintessential first
It's like the power bars.
Yeah, but now, yeah, exactly. It's just like, what were you thinking? But yeah, I think there's some lawsuits being thrown because they're marketing misinterpreted and greenwashing and all of this. It's not really greenwashing, but kind of lying from what they're actually filtering out and capable of filtering. So what do? Easy solution: if you don't have a tested, aquifer or river, and that's the number one.
And you don't have to filter when it comes out of the aquifer.
Well, you have to test it because, again, our modern day world has affected and infected almost every area of our planet. So get it tested or just filter your damn water with RO, reverse osmosis is probably the best. You can use distillation.
Okay, so I just found out about Holstein water.
Oh, yeah.
However, I have a serious problem with Holstein water.
Yeah, well.
Their 5-gallon jugs have this plastic material on it. And it's like BPA free, but still, it's the type of plastic is still an endocrine disruptor. So I order a bunch of these glass bottles.
And they have to ship it.
And they have to ship all these glass bottles. And I've reached out to them and I'm like, guys, Mountain Valley does it. Just make your 5-gallon glass bottles.
It's coming. Where's it coming from? It's coming from the Swiss Alps or Austria. Yeah, they sent me that.
But I really like it.
It's incredible. It's
and they don't filter it.
No. It's they tested all the waters from their perspective, all the waters in the world. They sent me years ago. They sent me, and it was incredible. But I just couldn't get my head around having my main water sent to me from that. It just. I just don't believe in sending water around the world. Like, create it, pull it out of the air, and we're looking into. There's some interesting technologies of desiccant advancement. That's some of the people that I'm talking to are working on being able to create water from the ambient humidity more efficiently than some of these other mechanisms that use a lot of power that I've condensation technology. If you don't want the concentration of salt, Himalayan or unrefined Celtic sea salt or whatever, you can use fulvic minerals, Shilajit. There's a great company called Mana Vitality that studied water upside down and sideways, found the greatest plant minerals on the planet in the Himalayas, and from the Dead Sea found more of the electrolytes. Spent years creating that formula, and then it's these little packets you squeeze into your water and get over 90 essential minerals and electrolytes and antioxidants and from ancient plants.
Amazing.
So they have a whole company around. I love these guys.
Cool. And then what is a water vortexer?
This is a way to help realign and restructure the energy that often gets destroyed with water. So in nature, water never flows in a straight line. It doesn't exist, right? So like Schauberger looked at nature, and you want to mimic her as much as possible. So vortexes are ways to activate and create energy back in the water again. So there are different mechanisms you can do for that. I have a little vortexer myself.
Can you just put it in a blender?
I mean,
it like a little blender?
Yeah, but there's it gets pretty intense in terms of the mathematics that it takes to create these. Sure, you can, and you will create probably more oxygen saturation and activity in that water, and shaking it up is a good idea. In the airports, I will dump it into my glass bottle and put my electrolytes in it and shake it back up and create some activity in there. But it's reorganizing the cells in a way that's more receptive to the body.
Not only is the leather and fur industry fatal to animals because it's their skin.
Gosh.
But synthetic materials can also be very toxic to us and our planet. In your opinion, what's the best solution to help this growing problem?
That chapter in the book was pretty shocking. And also the aspect of it's the second largest polluter in the world. So think of most clothes are essentially using some form of petroleum, polyurethane, elastane, stretchy jeans, whatever it else. And this is like wearing a plastic water bottle, right? It's on your skin. You get heated up. You start to receive some of those chemicals. So endocrine disruptors, especially underwear, if they're not pure organic cotton or silks or things like that, I would start there in terms of like what to do, like the bras and the underwear and then God forbid people wear yoga pants, man. That's a big one.
What if they're organic cotton yoga pants?
They might, yeah, for sure. But I'm talking about the stretchy ones that everyone is, just and there just been more tests done on that where the endocrine disruptors. Think about that. Yeah. Wow. So the fashion industry is pretty intense. Formaldehydes, phthalates, PFAS, these kind of things. So what do we do about it?
Yeah.
Upcycle. Older clothes are better, so I find it fun every once in a while to just go on some of these sites. I put a lot of solutions in the book where people can look for upcycled, and they're like sometimes one of a kind, right? These kind of new fashion kind of stuff. I'm so bad now that I've had to have my buddy Jeff Garner, who's been in sustainable fashion for 20 years. Now he makes all my clothes. So he's made all these clothes except my shoes. Yeah.
What kind of shoes are those? Those are fancy.
Those are, I forget these, but it was a company that I forget their name.
I love your style and it suits you too. It's very
it feels, again, so it's integration. So from the book and from learning, and he made my clothes for season 2 of Down to Earth. Most of them. I mean, I didn't have enough, but if you can spend a little extra money, and this does a couple things. You get better quality that you get to integrate. So use organic materials, all that stuff. And then that voting dollar that you're using, you say no to the synthetic stuff and you say yes to these companies. The more we scale those companies, the more solutions we have for the wider amount of people. So the people that can afford it, please do it, because then that will over time make it more accessible for other people.
So two more subtopics on this. What do we look for in a dry cleaner, and what do we ask them specifically to make sure that they're using non-toxic cleaning solution?
Oh man, this one is it's a tricky because people still use this stuff called perk. And it's carcinogenic, and I feel bad for people just working in those facilities. Here's what I would do. If you really need a dry cleaner, don't have them use chemicals. Just have them not use their chemical wash and just steam, clean it. Ask them what are you washing it with? Do you have alternative? What are they?
Yeah.
If they can wash it without their perk and these other chemicals, then have them do it, and then just steam dry it, right? Just steam clean. And listen, buy one of those steamers.
Yeah.
Right? Those steamers are so easy. One little hack I used to do and still do, I have an empty little spray bottle that I travel with. So when I get somewhere, in a hotel and my things are wrinkly, or I'm not in a hotel. Okay. And I take I do this at home. I'll take the spray bottle and I'll spray a light layer on the shirt or the pants, and then I'll snap it a few times.
With water.
Yeah, I spray it with water.
Okay.
And ideally if it's warmer,
Okay.
When it's warmer water, I spray it. I snap the shirt or the pants, and then I just hang it. It will get out 95% of the wrinkles.
Did you develop this trick
No,
yourself?
it was passed down to me generations. No, I'm just
Wow.
kidding. No, but a buddy of mine.
The snap wisdom.
Yeah. The buddy of mine told me this one time. I forget. I think his name was Ryan. And I was like, that's freaking brilliant. And really easy. Snap, and you're
Wow.
good. Yeah.
So interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, and then receipts. So when we buy whatever, it doesn't even have to be fashion. It could be groceries. We get those thermal receipts.
Yeah.
I've heard so many times, do not touch thermal receipts. They're toxic. Why? What's on them?
Yeah, it's that slippery material.
It's just PFAS.
Yeah.
PFAS or PFAS?
Yeah. Either
tomato,
way.
tomato.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, there's 9,000 different forms of PFAS.
Oh.
Right. So they're all over the place. So yeah. So don't take a receipt. If you really need to, just have them put it in the bag and just like minimally touch it. Take a picture of it if you need for your records or whatever. But groceries or whatever else, I just go. Now they're sending emails.
Let's talk about pets.
Yep.
As dog parents, like many others out there, we want to give our furry friends the best life possible. What are your top tips for doing so? Because I listened to an episode on the Darin Olien show podcast about... Do you like how I named the whole thing?
Yeah.
Go check his podcast out. It's amazing. And they're short too, which I like.
Oh, the fatal conveniences.
Conveniences.
Yeah.
So give me like some top tips for
Yeah,
how you take care of Chaga and Ella.
Yeah, I wouldn't use any medication anymore. There's too much evidence of neurological damage and potential.
Do you vaccinate them?
Only the rabies.
Okay.
one.
Do you know about teeters?
Yes.
Or it's called teeter, right?
Yeah.
Where you don't have to give it to them every year. You can just get to see if it's still in their system, which most of the time it is.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So it's mostly. I mean, I just don't bring Chaga or Ella to the conventional doctor anymore.
Where do you take them?
I consult a bunch.
Okay.
Big shout out to Rodney Habib, if you don't know them. Rodney Habib and Dr. Karen Becker, some of the great. She's formulated for a bunch of dog food companies. They together. I mean, Rodney is such an amazing human. He's helped me out with Chaga. Chaga had some dysbiosis in his gut, and Rodney was such a savior and angel for me and putting me in touch with naturopathic doctors. And so I've done a bunch of telemedicine with doctors, and I've gotten get blood work done. I've done animal biome. It's really important for dogs to get the biome, the microbiological activity down, and you can help balance with the food. But people, I think, anyway, the top tips, I give them filtered water.
And so you do reverse osmosis and you put them on a Vitality. Do you vortex the water for them?
I just ran out of time doing all that all the time.
Deserve.
But I do. But I have this new scalar energy wand. So it's scalar energy that helps to help the healing response of certain conditions. And it also structures water. So it's a lot easier than vortexing. So I'll just run it over their water for a minute, and that helps to organize.
Like blows air or something?
It's a frequency generator.
Okay.
I forget the name. It's a terahertz wand thing. So I run that over the water and just give it to them.
Thanks so much for tuning in. Love, Gianna and
Darin Olien.